And we're back, I think. Yep, we're back. Okay, so good morning. We are in the local vigilance area today. Kind of chilly out here. I was going to go to Vermont today, but the real feel up there today is well below 20. And there's a couple of logistical limitations on my situation this week where I'm not going to risk having a mishap up there when it's that cold out. It also was more things that I would have to bring with me to deal with the cold, and a combination of I really just didn't want to be out that cold bird hunting, so I'm down here instead and kind of doing a follow-up to the infrasonic situation that's been over here in the winter. I just want to come in here every now and then and see if there's a potential that it's going to repeat in other weather conditions, and so far it has not, which is interesting in itself. But we're also up against a little bit of wind today, so there's background noise for that. Wind does actually make infrasonic noise, so that would probably be background noise too. We're going to talk today, though, about something else. We'll get into it. It came up during the week, and it's going to kind of be one of these subjects that crosses between the bigfooting realm and mental health, and not my own. There's somebody that I'm aware of, and for respect to their privacy, I'm not going to mention them by name. People that know of his situation will probably deduce who I'm talking about, but it's a situation that there's a case to be made here for a couple of points to be made, and there's some other gossip that I'm aware of too. But we're going to cover that. We're going to go in here, listen around, see if we have any new manifestations of the pulsation noise, for lack of a better word. If not, then it's a mystery that's in the books as same, and we'll go from there. That's what we're going to do today. I'm also going to be listening in because I'm not far from where I busted the illegal dirt bikers last week. And if they're around, I'm going to see what I can do to get evidence against them again, too. It makes me sound like a narc, but you're not supposed to be in here. It's that simple. There's a big sign at both areas saying no vehicles, and they're breaking the law, so boo-hoo. Let's get going, see what we find, and we'll see what the day brings. Okay, we're back. We are in an area that may or may not look familiar. It changes a little bit with the seasons, but we're in here, and we're going to get the gossip out of the way first, which is basically anyone who knows of Tom Cantrell. Anyone who's been doing this for any period of time will know that he's a long-standing and prominent woo proponent, woo being the paranormal side of this. A philosophy that I do not personally partake of myself. He has the intention of going to a conference in the not so distant future, and he is bringing with him the photo that came out of, for me, the Boise Bigfoot folks, and they suddenly have gone away. I didn't expect that. I'm kind of boxed in here a little bit. He, basically I came over a little bit to the right of where I normally make entry, but that's okay. Easily fixed. He is taking it there, and he is going to present this as proof that it's the real deal, when in fact the popular opinion among the more flesh and blood types is that this was a product of AI generation, which it likely was. There's the outside possibility it could be a suit, but the major flaw either way is A, it's fake, and B, the arms are too short. To anyone who has ever seen one of these things, at least the variety in the Northeast, the arms are not that short. They're not human short. They're longer than that. Thought I heard an odd sound, and I'm perking up because of the pulsation thing. That's one of the targets for the day. Outside possibility, but you never know. Anyone who's ever seen one actually run, you will puzzle how they actually pull off that level of locomotion, because it's a weird thing to see. They don't pump their arms like we do. They swing them along their sides and are able to move really fast. How the fuck they do that is a good matter of conjecture. You literally would need to catch one and get one in the laboratory and put it on a treadmill to see this, which would be a fascinating thing if you could. But Then you have one in captivity, and these are not just apes. These are intelligent hominids that are, in my opinion, differently intelligent than we are, but qualitatively probably no dumber than we are. We went the way of technology and industry, whereas they went the way of living out in this. And they are that good at it. My own personal conjecturing opinion. Keyword opinion. Which, as we know, all people have those and have things that they excrete poo out of too, and it is take it for what it is. But he's going to present this as the real deal, and this is why a lot of people just don't take the guy seriously. I actually had an interaction with him on Facebook years ago and found him to be a wee bit on the arrogant side, like he's a know-it-all. He doesn't want to hear that he's wrong, and he doesn't take that news very well. So it doesn't surprise me that if he were to be challenged on this, he's probably going to do the Chris Noel thing and double down, like Chrissy did with the porcupine, and made himself look like a royal idiot. It seems like I rag on him every day, or like every time I make a video, but he deserves it, because you are the reason, Chris, why we cannot have nice things in the Bigfoot community, because you make yourself look like a fucking idiot, and we're all associated along with you, which is why I freaking call you out on it. But that is the gossip I'm aware of for the week. The other matter, I'm going to kind of have a look around first before I get into this, because this one's a little bit more involved. So we're going to take a quick segment break after I take a look around down here by the shoreline, just because I can look around down here by the shoreline and see a couple of things if anyone's been camping down here. Because at one point I think there was a self-constructed fire ring down here, although I don't see it right now. Got a couple of beaver dams. I haven't seen the beavers here, but every now and then you can see like fresh work done on them. So there's beaver dam there, beaver lodge there, and one over there. So they may have a summer and a winter house. I don't know, or who knows? They may have a tunnel in between. That would be kind of cool. But here's the fire ring, I think. See if there's any recent use of this. Looks like it hasn't been used in a while, actually. It's kind of close to the water. Anyway, it is actually surprisingly chilly in here, because the weather forecast actually says that it's like about 45, which is chilly, not freezing, but with the wind going, it's a little bit more of like a real feel, probably like in the upper 30s. I can only imagine what Vermont would have been like. The real feel was projected at like 18, but then you have like wind on top of that was like going to be, excuse me, in the neighborhood of like 20 miles an hour, which is going to be chilly. It's going to be cold. So rather than try to bird hunt in that, because it's kind of problematic. And if the other thing I'm thinking about now, if you know anything about bow hunting and you know what the term wobble means, it's kind of like the trajectory that your arrow takes when you shoot one. If you have a lot of wind and a gust, there might be some play on that, and that might affect your aim as well. So that's another kind of detractor from the thing. Maybe I'm overthinking it. If you're a bow hunter and you're seeing this and you disagree, comment and tell me why, by all means. I'm fairly new to the thing, and more than happy to learn from somebody with more experience in the field doing that. I am not an arrogant prick, so I would listen to that and take the advice under advisement from somebody who's been doing it longer than I have. Again, I'm going to take a segment break and kind of sum up how I want to address the matter I'm aware of. It's kind of a plea for like, get some help in a way. Again, there's if I was home and doing a live stream, there'd be a whole lot of stuff on Facebook where you could screenshot, and I would have visual aids to make the point. But I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name out of respect for his privacy, because he's probably going through a little bit right now. That being said, if you are aware of who he is, you'll probably be able to deduce who I'm talking about fairly easily, but one thing at a time. We're going to take a segment break. I'm going to head off that way a little bit, and we're going to have a look, see if we're with some stuff. So I'm going to probably edit that out, and we'll catch you. Let's get into the other subject now. So I'm going to say this in the effort to not bring the gentleman's name into it. It's probably not going to be that hard to deduce who I'm talking about, though, if you know anything about him. Since he is a fairly known figure in the community, and he is someone who I co-admined his rather notorious Facebook group for a time before his more malignant personality traits became more than I cared to deal with, and we parted ways. I'm not going to get into the specifics because it's not really relevant of what we're going to cover today. So for those of you who don't know, what was it? It was there's a newspaper article out here that actually covers it. So this is something, when I first heard it, I was kind of dubious, but there is a news story that does back up the story that the gentleman's bookstore did burn down. It had been suffering due to COVID and the fact that people weren't out buying books or doing things like that because of that. There are certain niche businesses that were sucking wind during COVID. Unfortunately, this gentleman's choice of business venture was vulnerable to that, so I'm sure he didn't have the funnest time during COVID. And despite the animosities we've had in the past, I actually do feel for him on that, because I don't kick somebody when they're down. I have a very hard and fast rule about that. Which is why this is going to be done in more the avenue of get some help. So back in September, his bookstore apparently burnt to the ground, and due to some health issues he had, he apparently passed out and got out, so he claims. And this is the story that I'm reading from the paper. I'm not saying this is his version of events. This is what made it to print. And I could go into a side rant on the dubious nature of the news media, because I've seen more than one example of where, when you actually read into the details of a story, as opposed to the clickbait of the headline factor, they're basically embellishing it to get the desired reaction out of their target audience that they want. So when I tell the details, this is what's in the story. I was not obviously there. This is third hand, but it's also an expression of concern because of my interest in and my own dalliances in the subject of mental health. So in this case, we're dealing with narcissistic personality traits and some obsessive disorders, but hear me out. So his bookstore burned down. The story in the paper says he had fallen on financial hard times and was living in the store. So in that one fell swoop, he not only lost his business, not to mention probably several historical valuable effects related to the Bigfoot subject. He was a person who had books that were probably hard to find, and as a result, if you lost those in the fire, that is a damn shame, and I feel for the guy. I'm trying to pick my words carefully here because I don't want this to come across like an attack, because it is not meant that way. I actually sympathize that he went through this, and that's why I'm actually voicing some human decency related concerns here. That's a lot to go through in a period of time. That's a lot to go through, and the reason I'm saying this particular to a fire is because my better half has been through a fire, and I've literally seen the long-term toll that this can take on people. I'm not saying this out of my ass. I am saying this from direct personal experience, having seen somebody go through this. Having something like that happen where you lose your home, you lose your business, you lose a lot of your life, which is literally what this is, that is a life-altering event. And in my better half's case, she ended up getting some therapy because you need to talk to somebody about that. You can't just roll over and act like it was no big deal. That's not the case. It's a traumatic experience. And as a result of this, what I'm saying to this person is you should probably at the very least get some grief counseling if you haven't looked into that, because I'm going to say this bluntly, and if you read this and you get offended, you're not going to be able to take legal action because I'm not using your name. So just get past that. You need to get over your narcissistic tendencies, malignant as they are, and you need to listen to fucking reason. You need to get some grief counseling because what you went through is a life-altering event. I am not doing this to belittle you. I'm not doing this to insult you. I'm doing this to express some concern for your mental well-being because I'm going to say it again. My life partner went through this, and she had to deal with the insurance companies, which is going to raise another part of the subject in a minute. But let me just make this point clear. They will nickel and dime the last 30 years of your life with things like family heirlooms. And I'm referring to her direct experience. And you have to go through this. And this is a hard thing to do. And this is not a time to have pride. This is not a time to suffer needlessly. It's a time to fucking accept help and figure out and prioritize getting your life back in order. Not being on fucking Facebook every day arguing about Bigfoot with people that don't agree with you. And the reason I'm going in that direction is because I saw the Josh Turner page thing the other day, and you haven't changed a bit in the course of the years I've known you. You are doing this every day, and this is, to say the least, an unhealthy obsession on your part. And this has been suggested, and I'm going to echo it, as I'm possibly in the company of somebody over there, or a large animal. We are in a bear and moose inhabited area. Anyway, you should at the very least seek grief counseling because you inside, whether you want to admit it or not, your body and your mind are reacting. One could say your soul, if you want to take the spiritual route. You are recovering from a massive loss, and that is like where your comfort zone was removed down to a point where you are now basically mentally running scared. I've seen somebody do this. I'm not saying everybody reacts this way, but it is something that you should safeguard yourself against. In the case of what I've seen you do recently, and I say that this is going to sound like an attack, it is not meant that way. It is meant as an honest suggestion. You honestly ought to take, at the very least, a month or two away from the Bigfoot subject and focus on getting your fucking life in order. And I'm almost sounding like a judgmental parent when I say this, but you need to do that. I would go so far, this is maybe a little extreme for some, but I also would suggest you might actually consider a voluntary stay in a mental health facility, because some of the shit you're saying and some of the actions that you're doing in light of what has happened to you really paint a picture in the direction of you not being mentally okay. And I'm not saying this to insult you. I'm not trying to be predatory in saying this. I'm saying this in general concern. These are very common out here. I'd like to have somebody identify those. Back to my rant, though. You are exhibiting some things that make me think you're not mentally okay. And you have been doing this for years. If you were to go into an ER for anything, and you do have health issues, so you can't tell me this is above and beyond the realm of possibility, I could very easily have see them holding you over for mental observation. You should take that with a word of advice, because when I see the way that you're interacting on your group, you are surrounded by enablers. And I'm going to go to a different personal experience to cite for this. I am actually citing from evidence from my own personal life. The family situation that I grew up in included a parent who was a malignant narcissist, among other bits of a rather thick mental soup, so to speak. And the other parent was very much an enabler of this. And when you're growing up around that, I've seen the effects around people of the damage this can do, and it can fuck people up for life. I'm saying that from personal experience because the fact that I came out as relatively normal as I did is actually a mystery to me, given the fact that I could have so easily gone down so many self-destructive paths, given my upbringing. I honestly could have. And I'm telling too much personal information right now, but I'm saying this as a point of reference to help this person if they're willing to listen to it. You should also understand, and if you were to go and take the radical step of taking a voluntary stay in a hospital like that, you should also protect yourself from the standpoint that you should know most states allow for a voluntary stay to become involuntary if you change your mind and they decide that they want to keep you there. They can legally do that, and they can do it without your consent. You should also know that. As somebody who has had, and I've covered this in a different video, as somebody who has had 3 bogus, malicious wellness checks called on me, kind of like a soft swatting, if you will, I've made it very clear. I've made a point of knowing the legalities of your rights and the lack thereof in this situation. And to protect yourself, the best thing to do is not allow yourself in that situation if you don't need to be there. In your case, I think you need to be there. You, at the very least, if you don't have any kind of therapy going on, you should get some therapy going on because you do fucking need it. If only because of what you've been through. But also just the fact that you're obsessing on the Bigfoot crap, and you are getting worse than what I've seen you do recently. So it's something to consider. The other thing I'm going to suggest to you, and this is not an accusation, so don't scream slander, blah, blah, blah. Because again, I'm not using your name, and I'm not saying this is the case. The fact that you had a fire and the building went down and you can't identify the cause from the standpoint of somebody investigating this fire, considering that you were taking financial losses and considering that you took a total loss, somebody with any expertise, from like an insurance investigator to a fire arson investigator or somebody, is going to look at that with suspicion. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm saying in the eyes of somebody looking into that, they're going to raise an eyebrow and they're going to have questions. You should get a lawyer. If you don't have a lawyer, you should get one, because it's now November, and I understand that it was September when this happened, but investigations like this can go on for months before they come looking for you. Odds are, if they haven't come looking for you for questions, the odds are probable that they're not going to, but you should at least have a contingency plan. And this is making me sound paranoid, but it's not. Dumber things have happened. I have citable stories of a semi-related nature that I could get into, but let's focus on the matter at hand. They may not, they may. And if they do, you should have a contingency plan of how to handle that. Because if you are in need of grief counseling, and I think anyone in that situation is, I'm not singling you out, you got enough going on and you don't need the help. And it's going to be a lot harder for them to come after you if you were staying in a mental hospital for a while to get some help, because you do need it. You can take that as an insult. You can take it as a warning. You can take it as an expression of concern. What I'm seeing you do right now is not a rational mind at work. And I know that anyone being told this is going to scream gaslighting. They're going to scream that, you know, you're doing this to get in. I'm not doing that. I'm concerned for your mental well-being, because I've had people do this shit to me, or try to. And I'm going back to the I've talked about this in the past, but I'm talking about the roommate in college who tried, at least on one occasion, to see if they could get me checked in without my consent. And luckily, they had no case. They were trying to basically force me to move out of the room that we were sharing because we didn't get along well. Mainly because they were a malignant narcissist. You notice a pattern here? But they tried, and they actually did, because the school had a procedure they had to follow, apparently. they got me as far as to have a psych evaluation, which fortunately they saw it for what it was, and the whole thing lasted 7 minutes, which is not long at all. It never got into my mental health. It got into the nature of the dispute with a roommate, which led to them getting warned about the perils of false reporting, which is another factor here. But I'm not reporting you to anyone. I'm telling you that I'm concerned for your mental state of being. You can take the advice, or you can do what you're probably going to do and pull the wagons mentally in a circle and swear up and down that you're fine. Your enablers will probably back you up, because that, of course, is what enablers do. In some cases, the enabler is the worse person than the person who's mentally afflicted. Just a thought. That's all I have to say on it. But again, just because you haven't heard from investigators in 2 months doesn't mean that you're not going to. I would at least have a plan to have a lawyer if you need one. And in the meantime, you ought to look after your mental health. I'm going to leave it there. If you hear this and you wig out, it was not meant as an attack. If you take it that way, that's just all the more proof of my point. Because a rational person would say, thank you for your concern, but I'm fine. A not rational person is going to take it as an attack and go into monkey shit mode, which you are doing against Josh Turner and doing all the same bullshit you normally do with the barrage of screenshots, which is a very definite sign of freaking obsessive behavior in support of a malignant narcissistic personality. And again, one of my parents had this affliction, so I see this shit coming. I know exactly what it looks like. I don't speak from just like flashcard psychology kind of a standpoint. I have grown up my whole life with this shit. And I see the damage it does. Which is why I will not be attacked by it. Not this late in my life. I have other shit to do. So, that said, if you want to take my advice, get the fucking help. You do need it. For those that are out there that know who I'm talking about, you can agree or disagree. I'm not offended if you don't, but consider the possibility of the enabling you're doing if you do. That's the end of the subject, and I'm going to take a segue break into other matters because I don't want to beat on this to death. I have made my feelings known about it, and if he's offended by it, well, comments stand, and it's not meant as an attack. It's not slander. I didn't mention your name, and I'm not going to. You know who you are, and if you are watching this, and I'm not going to say that you're not, and I'll tell you why. Every now and then you have somebody coming into your group. Sometimes they're trolling, sometimes they have a different opinion. And every now and then you have the woo defenders go in there. Considering your group is very anti-woo, I don't know why they do that myself, but they do. And you go into paranoid stalker mode. I've seen you do this. So I will admit I have two facets to my Facebook presence. One is the bigfooting one, and one is solely for family and friends. The one for family and friends has never interacted with your group, and yet somehow you found it and you blocked it. When it was not seeking any interaction with you or your group. A friend of mine from Facebook who has had dealings with you had noticed the other day when you were getting into it with Josh that he had been unblocked for a brief period of time and then reblocked after you were like looking into. That tells me that you were like checking up on people to see if you can identify the mystery troll of the week. It seems like you have one every week. Which, as much as it is like a poor commentary on social behavior, it's also, what are you doing to attract their attention? Because there are assholes out there that like to poke the stick to people that react by going monkey shit about that. That is effectively the epitome of what a troll is. But I know you do this because you found the account that I only use for, I probably have 30 friends on it that are family or work related, but it's a very closed segment of people, and Bigfooters aren't on it. and yet you found that anyway. And ironically, I thought I had had you blocked there just to just to not have interactions with you there, because if you're stalking me, you're not above stalking my family, because other people that are hoaxing people that have a criminal background, I won't get into them today, but they have stalked me for years. So don't think it doesn't happen. Facebook has certain aspects to it that does facilitate the act of stalking. It does happen. And I saw you doing this, and you're probably doing it. I have you blocked on my primary Bigfoot profile just to forego having to do this, which is not to say that your sock puppet accounts are not doing that for you, or you don't have people that we mutually know that are doing it for you unknowingly. You are a bit of a manipulator because you tried doing that shit to me more than once. You're not the only one, but others have. But the thing is, it's obsessive behavior, and that's kind of what I'm referring to where you need some help. You don't need to be obsessing on Bigfoot. You need to be fucking getting your life back in order. That should be your priority. Take a fucking break from the skullduggery of the Bigfoot world, which is basically Facebook fantasy land anyway. There is being out here like this looking for actual evidence, and then there's the actual BS where you get into the flame wars on Facebook, and frankly, I don't have time for that. I saw what you were doing to Josh the other day, though, and Jesus Christ, dude, get help. I'm going to leave it there and take a segment break before I ramble anymore. We're back because I'm still on the mental health tangent, but not so much on this gentleman anymore. We'll leave him alone to do what he needs to do. Hopefully he will. But every now and then I get on this tangent because I've gotten a little bit interested in it, having been soft swatted a few times and having to learn more about it. My own right, my own upbringing. I'm going to go into a more generic level of thought on it, and basically that being this. I think I've mentioned before, I have been in therapy myself. I had a work-related situation going on a couple years ago that was a triggering event for some PTSD-related things that occurred in my youth. Not going to go into the details of them. You don't need to see me triggered on camera. But the point that I'm going to drive towards in saying this is I saw the need to talk to somebody about this. And a lot of the times you're going to get more benefit in dealing with something that you're going through. As we thoroughly digress from the Bigfoot subject completely. You're going to get more bang for your buck if you catch a situation in your mind early on and you go to therapy as opposed to going to a hospital, because once you're at the point where you need to go inpatient on something like that, you are already behind the 8 ball and things have gotten worse than they should. And a lot of the times, if you get to therapy and you actually do have an interest in getting past the thing that's making you not okay, therapy is going to be a better solution towards that. Kind of sliding back into the person I'm talking about as an example. And what I mean by example is, I think what's going on with this person has been going on for a long time. And you're past the therapy level. Which is why I said what I did, and I think that he could stand to have a stay in a hospital of that type. It would benefit him. And I'm not going to beat on the drum because I mentioned one of the malignant wellness checks that was called upon myself. The one in college was a situation, I won't mention the asshole's name. He was a malignant narcissist too, but he thought he could get me to move out of the apartment by way of forcing me into a psych hold situation for whatever. Why he chose that route, I have no idea. But he did. And because the school is hyper vigilant towards liability and not having any in things like this, they made me go to a very soft pedaled, very soft serve version of a psych eval, because one could make the argument, if you were sent to one and it turned out to be malicious like this was, it's not inconceivable that a vindictive, litigious-minded person might actually want to go and do something about that. So they were kind of like in a place where they had to kind of cover it from both angles, and I understand that, having had a couple of years to wrap my mind around what actually happened. But the interesting side, this is like more of a story time now. The interesting thing about the kind of person that does this shit is somebody who, even after that, displayed, again, obsessive behavior, because they didn't like the way that I didn't see things their way, and often said, and this is the illustration, my conjecture into this person's home life. He was the oldest sibling and a very quick to assume that he's in charge of the situation at hand kind of person. And basically would say a lot of things along the lines in my direction. Well, somebody has to control him. This is a person who's not even a relative of any kind. And these are the kind of controlling relatives that try to get people into conservatorships and things like that for whatever demented reason. I'd cite what happened with Britney Spears, but that's kind of a poor example considering she does seem to have some mental issues. But well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But this guy tried to use that line, and it was an attempt. I'm going to break it down as a psychological analysis of what they're doing. It was an attempt to gaslight, a term that I've used before. They're trying to basically, through repetition and the like, they are trying to bend your reality, your perception of your reality to what they want it to be. And if they work on it enough, they feel like they're going to try to do that. Unfortunately for this individual, my narcissistic parent had done this for years and years and years, and I saw what it was. And it's like kicking a dog to the point where the dog just doesn't care anymore. There comes a point where you're just so calloused to it, it just doesn't work anymore. The enabling parent was also one who tried to live through guilt. And I have told her on more than one occasion, why do you try to guilt me when you know it doesn't work? You're wasting your time and you're just going to frustrate yourself. It's like you're not even mad at them for trying anymore. It's like you do this to the point where it's predictable. I can set my watch by it. And you know I don't react to it. You know, why can't you just deal with me straight? You don't have to play these games. Because that's all they are. That's what this guy would do. But the funniest time, I'm building to a crescendo here, and the crescendo is, there was a time when we got out of school. You'd think this would end after school, but no, I ran into them a couple of times after school. And this delightful twat, I'm not going to even use nice words, tried to use the words, we're going to force you into counseling, while he was at a happy hour at a bar and clearly not sober. I'm pretty sure, for the sake of my own amusement, that when you are less than sober, you're not really in a position to have something like that done to somebody without their consent, which he obviously was not going to have. I'll figure out how to get down this. Which actually really wasn't that hard. I made more out of that than it was. But I mean, this is the kind of nonsensical turn this kind of thing can take. And if you let it go long enough, that's what happened. He's at a bar talking about forcing me into a psych stay or whatever the hell he thought he was going to do. But what was he going to do? Was he going to call emergency services while brazenly drunk? I don't think I would have been the one going to the ER. That probably would have been him staying for a bit. But that plays into the realm of stupid games, stupid prizes. You know, but bleep you for trying. Bleep you for trying, you know. Anyway, that's about all I have for that. And the Bigfoot related fodder that I am aware of, I've covered. Tom Cantrell is going to go to a conference and make an ass out of himself with something that's clearly AI generated nonsense. And I think that the former bookstore owner should strongly consider a voluntary stay in a mental hospital. Because given what you've been through and given the way you're acting, it's like you're almost in denial or something, and that is not healthy at all. I'm not going to go into my own PTSD related information, but when you have something like that happen, I know from personal experience that you don't ignore it, you don't suppress it, because that is so bad for your internals. There are not even words. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm trying to get around this big stupid deadfall tree here because it's in my way in the direction I want to go. Because I'm trying to go that way. But I'm going to wrap this one up at this point. So for the outro, like, subscribe, leave commentary of things you want me to cover or things you'd like me to try doing, and I'll bear them in mind. This one was I forewarned you though, it was kind of a mixed bag of subject matter. And we're going to catch you the next time. I hope the person I refer to does actually do something to help himself, because I'm not attacking them. I think this has been discussed by a few people relating to him, and I think the prophecy is at the point of coming true where he was going to have a dark night of the soul kind of moment where he needs to choose his path going forward. I don't think he's on the right one. Not being judgmental, I am offering my concerns. That's about all. Until next time, we will endeavor to do something more Bigfoot related next time, or at least like if we have something happen here with the pulsating noise of last year, when we actually did do measurements and go into a hard research mode, we'll try to do something like that, but something like that actually has to occur. But until next time, folks, we hope you at least found this interesting, and we will catch you next time.